Hello again, and today I'm going to be reading from Act 2, and I'm going to be moving around a little bit so you can back up and look at this several times if you need to follow me along. What I decided to do today was to put the language in front of us here on the screen, and so I'm going to be starting today on page 899 in our textbook, and this is when Othello arrives to Cyprus. So, as you know, Iago has been given the job of getting the ladies to Cyprus. And Othello really believes that he's put his new bride in good, capable, honest hands. Remember that. And so they've been flirting and talking and just having a good time. And now Othello has arrived on the island. Also, if you're reading along, you know that the war is over, that the Turks, it really is quite fortuitous for us as readers. The Turks have been sunk. Their ships have been sunk. There is no war. And now everybody is on Cyprus and they're welcome there. And Othello gets to see his beautiful new bride for the first time. He says at the top of 899, he calls her by a metaphor, and that's he sees her as another soldier, but she's a beautiful soldier. He calls her, "Oh, my fair warrior. Oh, my fair warrior," he says. And she says, "My dear Othello." Now we get to see the two of them talking to each other really for the first time. And he says, "It gives me wonder, great as my content, to see you here before me. O my soul's joy! If after every tempest, if after every storm come such calms, may the winds blow till they have awakened death, and let the laboring bark that's a ship climb hills of the seas, Olympus high, if you will, and duck again as low as hell's from heaven. If it were now to die, if it were now to die, 'twere now to be most happy. For I fear my soul hath her content so absolute that not another comfort like to this succeeds an unknown fate." So if I were to die today, that would probably be good because I don't know if I'll ever feel this happy again. Desdemona says, "The heavens forbid, but that our loves and comforts should increase. I hope that each day our love increases, even as our days do grow." And Othello says, "Amen to that, sweet powers. I cannot speak enough of this content. It stops me here," he says. He can barely speak. "It is too much of joy. And this, the greatest discords be." He kisses her, "that e'er our hearts shall make." And in an aside, now an aside in Shakespeare is something that the character says to just you and I, the audience. The other characters cannot hear him. He says, "Oh, you are well tuned now." And he's talking to Othello. "But I'll set down the pegs that make this music, as honest as I am." And so here Iago is like a musical conductor. And he says that he has Othello well tuned to play on him. And I'll write down the notes that make this music. I'll decide where this piece of music is going, as honest as I am. And so a little further down, and now we're going down to the bottom of 899. Actually, at the bottom of 899, Iago sees Rodrigo here on the island. Now remember, he had asked Rodrigo to come to the island, wear a beard, be disguised. And he says, he tells him a secret. Iago says, "Do thou meet me presently at the harbor. Come thither. If thou beest valiant, as they say, base men, being in love, have then a nobility in their natures more than is native to them, listen to me. The lieutenant," that's Cassio, "the lieutenant tonight watches on the court of the guard." So while Othello is up in bed, having his honeymoon with his beautiful Desdemona, Cassio's in charge. He's on the watch. "But first I must tell thee this. Desdemona is directly in love with him. With him? Why, 'tis not possible. Iago says, lay thy finger thus, and let thy soul be instructed. So he's telling him, be quiet, and let me explain. First, mark me with what violence she first loved the more, but for bragging and telling her fantastical lies. And will she love him still for prating? Let not thy discreet heart think it. Her eye must be fed, and what delight shall she have to look on the devil? And so here he's calling Othello the devil. When the blood is made dull with the act of sport, there should be, again to inflame it and to give satiety a fresh appetite, loveliness and favor, sympathy in years, manners, and beauties, all which the Moor is defective in. So after she's tired of his body, she is going to want, she'll have a fresh appetite for loveliness and favor and sympathy in years and manners and beauties, and he has none of those, according to Iago. Now, for want of these required conveniences, her delicate tenderness will find itself abused. She will think, why did I ever pick you, Othello? Begin to heave the gorge. Now that means the gorge is the stomach, that she's going to almost gag when she sees Othello, to heave the gorge and disrelish and abhor and hate the more. Very nature will instruct her in it and compel her to some second choice. That second choice will come. She's going to have to pick somebody else. Now, sir, this grant is, as it is a most pregnant and enforced position, who stands so eminent in the degree of this fortune? Who would be a better second choice than Cassio does? A knave very voluble, no further constable than in putting on the mere form of civil and humane seeming for the better compassing of his salt and most hidden loose affection. Why, none. Why, none. A slipper and subtle knave, a finder of occasions that has an eye can stamp and counterfeit advantages, though true advantage never present itself, a devilish knave. Besides, the knave is handsome. He's young, and hath all those requisites in him that folly and green minds look after. A pestilent, complete knave. And the woman has found him already. So she doesn't even have to look hard. She's already found her second choice, and it is Cassio. Rodrigo says, I cannot believe that in her. She's full of most blessed condition. Iago says, blessed fig's end. The wine she drinks is made of grapes. She's just like you and I. My mother used to say, he puts his pants on one leg at a time. He's just a man. Well, that's what Iago says. The wine she drinks is made of grapes, just like the wine you and I drink. If she had been blessed, would she have ever loved the Moor? Blessed pudding. Didst thou not see her paddle? Did thou not see her paddle with the palm of his hand? Didst not mark that? So he's saying whenever she shook hands and whenever Cassio kissed her hand, didn't you see that they sort of lingered there? Yes, Rodrigo says, that I did, but I just thought that was courtesy. Iago says, lechery by this hand, an index and obscure prologue to the history of lust and foul thoughts. This is how lust begins. They met so near with their lips that their breath embraced each other. Iago is wonderful at giving people the imagery. So he says that when Desdemona and Cassio said hello, their breaths embraced. Villainous thoughts, Rodrigo, when these mutualities so marshal the way. Hard at hand comes the master and men exercise the incorporate conclusion. You know what comes next. You know what comes next, he says. But, sir, be you ruled by me. I have brought you from Venice. Watch you tonight for the command. I'll lay it upon you. Cassio knows you not. I'll not be far from you. Do you find some occasion? So he's not saying do you, but rather you should find an occasion to anger Cassio, either by speaking too loud or tainting his discipline, or from what other course you please, which the time shall more favorably minister. So he says, Cassio doesn't know you. So I want you to find some way to anger Cassio this evening. Pick a fight with him while he's on the watch. Rodrigo says, well, I will. Sir, Iago says, he is rash and very sudden in choler. That's anger. So even though he's a ladies' man and everyone finds him very courteous, Iago says he has a bad temper and haply may strike at you. Provoke him that he may. So get yourself punched in the face tonight. Do something to get Cassio angry. For even out of that will I cause these of Cyprus to mutiny, whose qualification shall come into no true taste again, but by the displenting of Cassio. So what will happen tonight, if you can get Cassio angry, is we're going to try to get Cassio replaced by his behavior, even fired. So shall you have a shorter journey to your desires, by the means I shall then have to prefer them, and the impediment most profitably removed, without which there was no expectation of our prosperity. So if we can get him looked upon as bad, maybe he'll get kicked off the island, you'll get Desdemona, I'll get his position, we'll be very happy. I will do this if I can bring it to any opportunity. Iago says, I warn thee, meet me by and by at the citadel. I must fetch his necessaries ashore. Farewell. Rodrigo says adieu. Now Iago talks to us in one last soliloquy here. He tells you and me, the audience, that Cassio loves her. I do well believe it. That she loves him, 'tis apt and of great credit. So I believe that everybody's in love with her. That she loves him is believable. The more, howbeit that I endure him not, is of a constant, loving, noble nature. And I dare think he'll prove to Desdemona a most dear husband. This is really sad because Iago's saying that Othello would be a great husband to her. Now, I do love her too. Oh boy, this is the first time we're hearing this. Not out of absolute lust, though peradventure I stand account for as great a sin, but partly led to diet my revenge. I'm forcing myself to be in love with her, so that I can get revenge. For that I do suspect the lusty Moor hath leapt into my seat. We know that he thinks that Othello has slept with his wife. The thought whereof doth like a poisonous mineral gnaw my inwards. I get a pain in my stomach when I think about him in bed with my wife. And nothing can or shall content my soul till I am evened with him, wife for wife. So he had my wife, I'm going to have his wife. Or failing so, yet that I to put them more at least into a jealousy so strong that judgment cannot cure. And so if I cannot at least exchange wives, then at least I can make him so very jealous that nothing would cure it. Which thing to do if this poor trash of Venice, and that's Rodrigo, if this trash, stupid Rodrigo, whom I trash with his quick hunting, stand the putting on, I'll have Michael Cassio on the hip, abuse him to the more in the rank garb, for I fear Cassio with my nightcap too. So he also thinks that Cassio may have slept with his wife. I'll make the more thank me, I'll make the more love me, I'll make the more reward me for making him egregiously an ass, and practicing upon his peace and quiet even to madness. 'Tis here, but yet confused. Knavery's plain face is never seen, tin used. So hopefully at this point you understand this very complicated plot. He's going to make Othello jealous. He's going to make Othello think that Michael Cassio is in love with Desdemona. and he is going to try to have Michael Cassio lose his job this evening.